Hello and welcome to Parallel Panels. If you are a previous listener of our Panel by Panel podcast, then you know that me and my friend Aaron like to start our episodes where we discuss comic books by just having a bit of a chit chat about what we've been up to or something like that. And we both recently went to go see Black Panther Wakanda Forever together, so we thought that we would upload this separate as it has nothing to do with the episode that we actually recorded, and just upload it as a separate thing where we give our takes on the movie, having seen it a few days before recording. So yeah, enjoy our take on Black Panther. Black Panther. Wow, that's something for you. If this is your first time hearing anything by us on Parallel Panels, please check out the Panel by Panel podcast, where I do my best to explain comic book storylines to my friend Aaron, who has never heard of them, or if he has heard of them, he's never read them, and so he gets to experience it for the first time live on a podcast, which is a lot of fun. Anyway, without further ado, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever.
Starting off, how'd you find it? Obviously, we watched it. When was that? 2 days ago now, 4 days ago. We watched it on Sunday. Fucking hell. So we watched it on Sunday. Yeah, how'd you find it all in all?
I saw a really good. I saw a tweet that I think explained how I kind of felt about it afterwards, which was somebody said that Black Panther Wakanda Forever had the best performances in a Marvel movie, but the story didn't live up to those performances. And I kind of feel that same way. Like, not that I didn't like the story, I thought the story was fine. The way it played out was a little bit predictable, and there wasn't, like, I was thinking this earlier, like, oh, maybe we'll do the first half as no spoilers, and then we'll talk about spoilers. There's not really a lot I could spoil for people.
No, that's the...
You know what I mean?
I mean, we had a discussion after it, but that was one of my main... Like, you say it's a problem in my eyes, because this is Marvel we're talking about, so you put them on such a high pedestal at this point. But it was my main problem, is that it's the same with most things that happen in Phase 4, is, does anything really happen? No. Like, nothing happens. So if someone goes, oh, what happens in Black Panther? I go, I mean, I can tell you Namor is a thing, and they don't kill him at the end. There you go. That's the only spoiler I've got for you. And they drop the M word, of course, which is quite big in Marvel's circumstances.
Yeah, which I think he might have said in one of the trailers as well.
Oh, so if he says it in the trailer, then that just kind of ruins the whole thing. Like,
yeah, I'm sure I'd seen something about it before watching the movie, but like the main arc is obviously Shuri kind of like living up to T'Challa's like place, and don't get me wrong, they did it really well. All the performances were so good, which really like carried a lot of the movie, because there were parts of the movie that were like pretty slow, but the performances were really, really good. But like, if someone was like, I'm not going to watch it, can you tell me what happens? I'd be like, yeah, you know how you know that Shuri is going to be able to do it. Like, she's going to be able to step up and fill those shoes. That's what happens. Which, don't get me wrong, like that to like narrow down the movie like that is a bit, oversimplifying, but I do agree with that tweet that I saw, that there were some things that didn't live up to the rest of the movie, which is a bit disappointing, but also they did a really good job, I think, of doing what they needed to do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so obviously now we're going to get into like proper spoiler territory, where I'm just going to basically read off some things that happen. Right at the start, they deal with the big elephant in the room. Obviously, Chadwick Boseman passed away, was it a year or two ago now? And they basically deal with that straight off the bat, which they did it, in my eyes, flawlessly. It's probably the best thing they could have done. It was respectful. They didn't use anything with him in it, either. And they even made the Marvel logo, all of his stuff in Civil War and the original Black Panther as well.
That was the bit that really got me. I really didn't see that
put
coming.
Me into the mood where I was like, oh, this starts sad, right? So then it
Yeah.
hits you with it straight away. Shuri obviously wants to save her brother, and she doesn't. That's basically the big thing. So he dies of an illness, they say, which I was like, okay, all right, you could have made it like epicer, but epicer, that's a terrible thing. Like more epic, but they kind of put in a hard spot. So I've got nothing against that. When it comes to the performances, the actress who plays Shuri is unreal in it. I think she's spotless. The Queen, I don't know her name.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie to you.
Angela Bassett.
I was meaning her actual name.
Oh, Ramonda.
Ramonda. She was unreal in it. I really liked her in it. But where we discussed afterwards, where you said that Black Panther 2 is probably better than the first. My main problem with this second one is, yes, you now know how Wakanda works in a sense, but you don't get anything. You're not really caring about Wakanda, even though it's a tax on Wakanda. And this is where I then called it the Namor film, because you feel more for Namor than you do anyone in Wakanda. And I just felt I didn't care about, is it M'Boku, who was pretty important in the first one. In this one, he felt like a less funny Korg. And that's where stuff just went the wrong way with me. But I don't know how you felt about it.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Like, it did feel like some things were kind of neglected this time around. I think maybe some of that would have made more sense if they had obviously made the movie they had planned to make with Chadwick Boseman, because obviously they felt like they had that story to tell, and then when you have to change it so massively, then it kind of changes like some of the core elements of your story. So I kind of expected it to be a little bit like that, and like we both said, I think they did a really good job of changing that to deal with what they needed to do. And yeah, like you said already, all the stuff that involved Chadwick Boseman was like amazing. Like they did it with such grace and stuff, which I didn't really doubt that they would, but all of that stuff was really good. Namor was like the thing that me and you probably spoke about the most after we watched it, which I really like Namor as a character anyway.
Namor, he's absolutely unreal in it. And the way they portray his story, obviously, as somebody who doesn't really know comic books, I knew Namor was a thing, but that was because of the dumb thing with Marvel Ultimate Alliance, where I knew Namor was like a bad Aquaman. That's that's the dumb way to put it. But I was excited to see him, and there is no way that he disappointed at all.
Yeah, I really liked all of the stuff with him. My only issue is like what you said about this phase of Marvel, is it kind of at the moment feels like we're at a point where they need to build back, so they can't take a hell of a lot of risks. So we have that kind of trope of stuff that always happens in comic books, where like I remember you having this problem with House of M when we did it, where they go through this big dramatic thing, and then at the end nothing's really changed. And don't get me wrong, the development of some of the characters was really great, but it felt like they were always going to get to that point. And that's the only thing that maybe disappointed me a little bit with Namor, is like, I guess he's had a bit of a character arc in the way that he kind of responds to the rest of the world who live on land. He's kind of learnt a lesson a little bit, but then at the end he kind of teases that he actually hasn't, and that he's going to keep scheming away and pretending to be friends with them, so that he can use it to his advantage. And I was like, and don't get me wrong, I was incredibly happy that he didn't die, because I enjoyed watching him, and I hope that he comes back in later films. But I was a bit like, oh, okay, so they just did the thing that House of M did, where it's like, okay, Wakanda is fine, the world is saved, everybody go back to your places, continue as usual. You know?
I feel, I completely get that sentiment with it. I feel with Namor, it gave more, a little bit of sauciness to it, where I was like, exact that end part was great. Obviously, he's not done yet. That's the big thing that I'm hyped for, and obviously he uses the M word, which is mutant. So that's just going to lead into possible X-Men stuff or Fantastic Four stuff. Who knows? Who knows? Honestly, but I get exactly what you said, but about Shuri, because obviously she put in a massive performance in this film. She was obviously meant to be the main one. She's not going to be Black Panther. She's just not. And it was, as good as a director Ryan Coogler is, I don't think he wants her to be Black Panther either. And I mentioned it to you right at the end, which there is a mid-credit scene. It felt like they want to reset Black Panther, like again, already, purely because of Chadwick Boseman's death as the kid that Chadwick Boseman, Black Panther T'Challa has with what's her face? It's not Okoye. Okoye's the other one. The woman in the first Black Panther.
It's Nakia, but I couldn't have told you that without having the cast up on my screen.
So yeah, Nakia and T'Challa, they do actually have a kid, but she's in Haiti, right? And then the last bit is, firstly, they have a kid, and it's just like, oh, okay, well, mad. And also, the kid isn't going to Wakanda, but its Wakanda name is T'Challa. And that's where I was like, it's nice sentiment, but to me, it felt like their plan is to bring back Black Panther in a different way by making him younger, like kind of like Spider-Man-ing Black Panther. As harsh as that sounds, but it's like, it's probably the only thing they can do, honestly, because there's so much of Black Panther that just hasn't been told. Unfortunately, he only had one film, and that's the biggest.
I really will be interested to see what they do with Black Panther going forward, because they did kind of like sow that seed that maybe T'Challa's son will take over from him at some point, because they like obviously like near the start of the movie they keep saying about how there is no Black Panther anymore, and that they don't need a new one and stuff like that. Well, there isn't anyone to be the new one, obviously, and then Shuri kind of takes that place. But
I think that's more
because she has to, because she doesn't want to.
Yeah, it's
right?
more of like character building on her part, because her whole character, even in the first one, was fuck tradition. It's all about tech, and science is going to push us forward, not traditions. And then this film just went,
yeah,
hey, look, traditions do be pretty sound though. So like, yeah, it's just one of those.
We should talk about on the subject of Shuri and technology first. We should talk about Dominic Thorne, who debuted as Riri Williams, aka Ironheart. You didn't know that Ironheart was getting her own show, so did this make you excited for the Ironheart show?
So again, we spoke about this, and you also got me into this as well, which I'm fuming about, which is opening me more to characters in the MCU, which is helpful. Not the cinematic universe, but the MCU as a whole, even the comics, which is Marvel's Snap. So I now know more villains and heroes now. So I use Ironheart in that, and I was like, oh, she has a skin where she's black. Okay, that's a little bit weird. And then this, we saw her, and I was like, oh, that's really sick. But we had a chat about it afterwards as well. I'm worried for the show. I think she's one of those ones where she felt a bit like Ant-Man. It was more, she's there, she's sassy. That's basically her thing, and she's quite quiet in the film. She doesn't really add much, as like harsh as it is. This is just some of the things where I was like, going back afterwards after watching the film, being like, you don't learn anything about Ironheart. You know her dad's dead, but that's about it. and it just felt a little bit like an empty character. Is the best way to put it. So am I hyped for her show? Not really, because it's just, and it's, you could put it in a really harsh way, which is it's a black female Iron Man, which it's just not that. It's more than that. But after her story, I was just like, you're just going to be a lesser Iron Man, possibly just as good as Penny was in the Iron Man films, which she wasn't bad, but it's just not exciting me.
Yeah. There's two things that I thought about Ironheart being in this movie, which are both complaints that I don't think are Ryan Coogler's fault. One of the points that I was thinking of is like, would he have put Ironheart in his movie off of his own back? Because I
think he
don't.
Would have. I mean,
apart from them having a reason to go to America to do that whole thing because she builds that's how she gets introduced, is because she builds that device which can find vibranium. It didn't really feel like she added that much to the plot.
She added zero, but you could. This is the hardest thing with it, which I completely agree with you. I don't. As much, I think Ryan Coogler he's definitely a director who wants to include more black people. That's why he took on Black Panther, and he does it absolutely amazingly. But yeah, Ironheart felt way out the way for the rest of the film, because she's in America, not like, where's that? Like, I think she was in like New York or something, right? And obviously, Namor's in Mexico, and not even like northern Mexico, just southern Mexico, like Panama way. And you're like, why are we going to America? What's the reason? But yeah, I completely agree with you.
Yeah, I when I mentioned earlier about some of the parts in the movie feeling quite slow, not necessarily that there wasn't a lot happening, but I didn't really enjoy the parts that much where they went to America and that whole thing. I was enjoying it a lot more whilst they were in Wakanda or whilst we were with Namor. But also the thing with Riri Williams, and again, I don't think this is necessarily Ryan Coogler's fault, but her role in the film, apart from the vibranium thing, was that she is the fish out of water comedic character, which is not Ryan Coogler's fault because this is his movie doing it. It's not like he directed every Marvel movie ever, but we get that in like every Marvel movie. Like Thor originally, like you said, Ant-Man, like his whole thing where him and Spider-Man when they're with the Avengers and they're like, oh, we're not like you guys. We're not professional superheroes.
That's the
you
thing,
know?
though, right? Because with Spider-Man, it's a legit thing, and everyone knows Spider-Man at this point. So, like, you've had 3 iterations where he's done the big, I'm confused, I'm not used to this, I'm a child. Whereas, yeah, with Ant-Man, I think it's the big reason why Ant-Man hasn't done as well as any of the others, is just because you're just a grown-ass dude, but you're acting like a child, which is amazing for Paul Rudd. Don't get me wrong. That's literally what he does, and he does it really well. But you just kind of get sick of it. You're just kind of like, can we have like a hero that has a different like personality to this? Which is exactly what Ironheart does. She just acts like a sassy Spider-Man.
Yeah, I don't know if this is like partly due to Marvel fatigue or just the quality of the films in Phase 4. But I feel like the comedy has gone really downhill in Marvel movies. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of the, like, constant little quips style that they do. But I've always had a good time watching Marvel movies. And, like, they have jokes that make me laugh. But, like, even Thor Love and Thunder, which, like, I love Taika Waititi. His comedy is so dumb that it just hits that spot where I'm like, that's so silly that it's funny. And even that movie, I didn't laugh that much.
Yeah, I'd say the last one I probably actually laughed at was probably Multiverse of Madness. That was probably the one which I found more funny than anything. But I think I was finding it funny for the wrong reasons. For example, zombie Doctor Strange and just Scarlet Witch being crushed by a big castle. I was just like, that's a funny way to kill her off. But yeah, I feel the comedy is getting. People will call it woke, and I hate that word with a passion. It just doesn't make sense for what's going on. Because, as I've mentioned before, you haven't watched She-Hulk. You'd hate it. If you really don't like this kind of like phases comedy, She-Hulk, and I've started the Marvels, not the Marvels, is it Miss Marvel? Yeah, Miss Marvel.
Miss Marvel.
And again, the comedy is stale. It's not great. But it just seems like that's where it's going. Maybe we're getting old. I mean, we're only 25, but maybe we're getting old. Or you might be right with the Marvel's running out thing. Maybe they've just hired too many SNL people. You never know.
Yeah, I mean, I have confidence that Guardians 3 will still be a very funny movie because, again, I like James Gunn's style of comedy. But
straight to the point. Yeah. As well as Guardians, they all have different comedic kind of hits. Like,
yeah,
you can be blunt as fuck with Drax. You can be Chris Pratt with Star-Lord. You can with Rocket Raccoon. Who knows? You don't know what's going to fly out his mouth. So that's another one.
Yeah, but I think all in all, it's tough for me to summarize because I had this exact same take on the first Black Panther, which I know isn't the common opinion.
Oh, real controversial.
Where I feel exactly
real
the same.
Controversial.
Yeah. Where I'm like, I think that's a really well made movie. That this is like the opinion that some people have with like every comic book movie, where they're like, yeah, sure, it's a movie, but I don't really want to watch it because I know what it's gonna be, kind of thing. Like Black Panther 2 lived up to what I thought it would be. Like I wasn't disappointed at all, but I don't really see myself watching it again, and I don't really know why that is. It just, for whatever reason, I enjoyed the movie, but it just didn't like grab me. But that doesn't mean I don't think it was a good film. I thought the performances were, like we said at the start, like some of the best performances in any Marvel movie. Like from a dramatic standpoint, some of the scenes, specifically with Queen Ramonda, were like, I was like, this is in a Marvel movie. Like, this is mad.
Or even the part with, and this is a spoiler, Killmonger coming back. Like, Michael B. Jordan, he's in the film for a good 2 minutes. But even those 2 minutes, you're like, shit. But, yeah, again, I completely agree. I don't think I'm going to come back for Black Panther 2. But it to me, it just did not. If it wasn't for Namor, it wasn't going to be a good film, story-wise. Definitely story-wise. Just, it did not hold up anything. It's just this typical Phase 4 stuff where nothing's going on. You're not gonna... If you don't watch this, the only thing you miss out on is... What?
I think it's definitely still worth watching.
Yeah, don't get it wrong, but on like a story standpoint, I don't think you miss out on anything. But then again, I probably have that opinion on all of Phase 4, apart from maybe WandaVision and the upcoming Ant-Man film, because obviously the upcoming Ant-Man film is going to introduce the big boy of the new phase.
Yeah.
Which I can't imagine that's going to be a film that you can't watch, right? Like, it's Kang.
Yeah. 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 There you go. Black Panther.